Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. We have this PINBOT pinball machine in our showroom that we are fixing for Mr. James, one of our customers. We have already worked on this once before. He brought us all the boards to it, and we worked on all the boards, got them all doing their thing, or we thought we did. There was a problem on the boards with like the switch matrix or something like that, I think. And he doesn't live anywhere near here. He lives like several states away, but he drives through every once in a while. So he brought us the boards. We usually don't work on just the boards because we don't know for sure if the problem is the board or it's in the machine. But we fixed the boards up, sent them back, and guess what? Guess what's wrong with it, Joe?
It's broke.
It's broke, yep. The problem's in the machine, apparently. But we think it fried the boards again, so we gotta work through it a little bit. His machines are always pretty clean, so this is a good looking game. It'll be fun to play it whenever we get her fixed up. But Joe has put it back together. We've got to check it out a little bit, just make sure nothing rolled around and got screwed up inside. And then we'll turn it on and see if we can get a little fireworks going on the, the main MPU. And then see if we can track down what the problem is. But we've already rebuilt the power supply, rebuilt the soundboard, the MPU, so we shouldn't have really a bunch of preventative stuff to do. We just need to troubleshoot and figure out what the whole issue is. I believe he said that he thought there was something going on back where the eyeballs of the machine are, and there's some switches and flashers and lamps and all that back there. So we'll see if we can figure it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look inside of it, just make sure that there's nothing got knocked around during shipping. Sometimes like a head bolt will be in there or something, and it'll land on a fuse, and if you turn it on, it snap, crackle, pops. So we don't want to do that. And then I'm going to look in the back box, just make sure everything looks clean in there, and we'll turn it on and see what the problem is. But hopefully, here shortly, we'll be playing some pinball. All right, we're going in. So our first thing I noticed, the glass is too thick. It was really hard to take out, but it does fit. It's just too thick. It's thicker than it's supposed to be. I think it's 1/4 inch and it's supposed to be 3/16. But that's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Just figured I'd mention it. Okay? And so, looking in the cabinet, it's pretty clean. Got a little dust and... By the way, when I say clean, I don't mean it's spotless where you can eat off of it. I just mean that it doesn't have a ton of hacks or anything, right? Everything's pretty cool. It's got a big, huge speaker in it. So it's got... the Pinball Pro speaker setup. What am I hearing? Oh, Joe's back there. He's like a squirrel or something, playing with plastic. It's a Pinball Pro speaker setup with a big old volume knob on it. That's pretty cool. Looks like he's probably got his manuals and stuff right here. That's pretty cool. And then he's got a bunch of stuff labeled with blue tape. So I'm not sure why that is. Well, the last time I messed with PINBOT, I think I figured out that these wires right here on a PINBOT... Now, I have not messed with this particular machine, just the boards out of this machine. I think I figured out that these wires don't do anything. They were just extra from the factory. They may have had something planned that they didn't use, but those don't go to anything. We've got a resistor here that's been replaced. That's pretty common. These are the boards that run the flashers, and these resistors burn up and fall off the board all the time. For instance, there's one right there that's missing. So we need to replace that. Some tape up here. Oh, I think maybe he's marking stuff that ain't right. Because look, that's bent. I can bend that back. Ain't no problem. I can bend it back. Look, this one's bent too. What in the world? Okay. And then I guess this is saying, hello. Hello. This isn't right. And then this is saying, hello. This isn't right. So I guess that's maybe why you put this here, showing that the resistor's missing. There's another one down here. This flasher board, or snubber board, or whatever it is the relay, is loose. And then there's one down here, I guess a wire that's disconnected. So he's just pointing out things for me to look at, it looks like. So that's cool. I appreciate that. But I went ahead and took the tape off this one because these are extra wires. I've looked into that before. These don't do anything. They're just part of the loom. As weird as it is. All right, folks. So here is the back box. That's the connector, I think, that we messed with. See how the resistor pack has been replaced there? I think that's where we were screwing around with it, wasn't it? Somebody's repaired some battery damage. I don't think I did, though, or I probably would have removed that up there, but they've got a remote battery pack on it. I don't remember if we did any work up here with the special solenoids. There's the power supply we rebuilt. It's the soundboard. I can't remember. We may have not done the soundboard. I can't remember. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So I'm going to plug everything up, and then we'll try turning it on and see if we smoke anything. I think he said that's what happened with him. I'm going to go find his email and figure out what happened. What happened whenever he plugged it in. Let's look at the Playfield a little bit, too. It's in pretty good shape. Someone has removed the Mylar. Now, as you know, I never remove the Mylar because I'm not able to pull it off, literally. But you can see where they have. So it looks pretty good. Up here, they had a little issue. That's what happens when you pull it off, people. But other than that, everything looks pretty good. There's still Mylar in some places. Right. But most of it is gone. But looks very nice. I have a new phrase. One of our viewers, MRN Blocks, the guy he's also fixing up a circus pinball machine like we did. He gets a ton of pinball machines. But if you look on our channel, we subscribe to him, MRN Blocks. He said that the phrase is, "That's good enough for the girls we're dating." And that's the perfect sentiment, right? It's not perfect, but it's good enough for the girls we're dating. All right, so I've got everything plugged back in. Look, James did his little bridge rectifier fuse mod. That's pretty cool. It all looks pretty good. I did not plug in, I believe these are the switches. Because I think that's where our problem is. We're going to leave that off for now. And I think I've got the audio plugs plugged in, right? Okay, so this is literally a smoke test. We're going to see if anything smokes. And also the volume may be loud. Watch your ears. Nothing. Nothing. We did. I think it's because they're turned off at the wall. Hold on a second. Let me turn them on over here. Why didn't y'all tell me that? What's up with that? Let's try this again. Here we go. Okay, looking for smoke, people. We are looking for smoke. Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn it off and back on really quick, it's probably in test mode. That'll jump it into service. Out of service mode, out of test mode, into gameplay, maybe. Oh, it didn't like that. We got nothing, people. It's not working for us. right, so we're going to start at the beginning, check the power supply, make sure everything's cool, and then figure out why the board's not booting. It's not completely coming up. We're not getting any lamps or anything on the Playfield or any of that. So I'm going to check fuses and check the power supply, and we'll go from there. Well, I had to remove the power supply because I noticed that cap's in backwards. Now, you folks correct me on stuff all the time, but whenever I make a big mistake, like putting the cap in backwards, nobody said anything. And that video's been up on YouTube for like 6 months, and nobody noticed that the cap was in backwards. So, you know, come on, people. You're supposed to be putting down in the comments every little mistake I made, and you missed that one. Well, boy, James is going to be mad about this. I hope he doesn't watch this video. I'll just tell him it was a fuse. Hey, it's just a fuse. All right, so I'm going to swap that cap, and then we'll try it again. But I couldn't even test the voltages yet because that cap's in backwards. That does the lamps, by the way, so that may be why none of our lights were working. So maybe that'll fix part of it. Okay, so after putting the power supply back in, all of the voltages checked correct. None of the fuses are blowing. Everything's cool, okay? The board here needs 5 volts and 12 volts to boot and ground, right? So I checked the voltage on the MPU. We've got 4.93 volts or something like that. And we've got up over 12 volts on it. So the board has voltage. If you turn it off and back on a couple times, sometimes it'll come up and start playing the sound test. But we never get our blinking signal. So this LED here says blinking. You see it did, whenever we first turned it on, we got that to come on. And then it never came on after that. The board won't boot without the blinking signal doing its thing. It's one of the last things it does right before it boots up. So it's not booting. Sometimes that can happen because one of the chips is holding it down. So here's what we're going to do. I believe whenever I talked to him, he mentioned that whenever he put it back in the machine, something on the board started smoking or something. So we're going to recheck what we replaced down here and see if any of these reoffended. And if they did, we're going to mark it and check whatever's on that line in the cabinet so it doesn't keep happening. But we didn't have the machine before to check. If you remember from the other video, I checked all of these. We replaced a couple. There was a couple resistors here that we replaced. We had everything where it seemed like it was fine. We even checked this buffer chip here back behind it just to make sure it seemed like it was all right. But it could be that's got a problem or the PIA has a problem. So we're probably going to end up checking it with the test EEPROM. So we'll see about that here in a minute. But first thing I'm going to do is check these 8 transistors here that are on the switch lines and see if there's any problem with that. So the reason that I'm focusing on that is because that's prior damage that we know about, and that could still be the problem with the board, right? So I'll check that first and let you know if I find anything weird. So I went back and looked at the video when I repaired it before, and I had 3 transistors bad in the switch matrix. It was 42, 44, and 48. I now have 42 bad again, 44 bad again, and 46 bad. So, here is the switch matrix. I went ahead and, now this is very nicely done, but I went ahead and put a little X by the ones that are bad this time, right? This is the one that was bad last time that I replaced again. I mean, that I replaced, but is not bad this time. So left eject, that's up in the eye, the face target. Right eject, visor target 1, visor target 2, visor target 3, visor target 4, and visor target 5. So it's all that stuff that moves in the back. You know, that visor goes up and down. And then the 2, I believe that would be the 2 eyeballs up at the top, I believe. Okay, so that one was bad before, and now it's not. Okay, but the one that was just now bad is the ball trough 1 and 2. So that's down the out hole, basically where the balls land. Advanced planet must be a stand-up switch. The shooter lane switch, and the 3 switches on the vortex, which is the round thing up at the top back corner. So that transistor was shorted, okay? And then over here, this is one of the ones that was shorted both times. I believe that one was shorted both times as well, right? The left drop target at the top, the left drop target, or the 3 left drop targets, the top jet bumper, the bottom jet bumper, the left sling, the right sling, and the 10-point switch. Now here's the interesting one. This one was just now bad, and the only thing it's used for is 2 10-point switches. Okay? So, I'm going to go look at the Playfield. We got to figure out why it keeps doing this, because it did it to him. He sent me the board. I fixed it. He put it back in, and it did it immediately once again. Okay, so we got to go see if there's got to be something weird going on underneath that Playfield. So what would it be? Well, it's probably some kind of voltage, probably for the solenoids, is shorting into the switch matrix. So the switch matrix runs on 5 volts. But the solenoids run on, I think it's 38 volts. So if you send 38 volts into these, it, causes you some issues. So it's probably somewhere there's going to be a solenoid voltage shorted into the switch matrix somehow. And it looks like, I don't know how, but it looks like it's pretty catastrophic, where it's all over the place. Now, it could be, too, that the reason we're getting different ones is because one of these rows is shorted. Okay, so if one of these was getting power, then it would cause problems all the way down the thing. So that could be what's going on. And the problem could be on the board still, too. But we're going to go look under the Playfield and just look at all of the switches and see if we see anything weird, something that will explain why in the world it would do that. If there's a wire rubbed with the insulation off of it or something, and just see if we can solve the mystery of why this switch matrix keeps screwing up. That probably is why the board isn't booting. It could be that this has messed up this PIA chip, peripheral interface adapter chip. If that chip is screwed up, sometimes that will keep the board from booting. I don't know that just switches being stuck on wood for sure, because I don't see it. If it was like the test button or something, maybe, but the whole thing's not booting, so I guess it could be like if a tilt was shorted. Maybe it thinks it's tilted or something. But anyway, let's go look under the Playfield, see if we can find anything weird going on with any of the wiring. Okay, folks, we're going to play a game. You didn't think I was going to take all the fun away from you, did you? I'm going to involve you in the game, okay? We're going to take another look at this Playfield. And I'm gonna do it without commentary. I'm just going to show you the Playfield, and if you're the type, you can stop it and look at it and see if you can see the problem, and then I'm going to tell you what the problem was. So if you're interested in trying to figure out where the problem is, I'm going to show you a close-up of a whole bunch of areas of the Playfield, and it'll clearly show the problem, and then you can decide if you know what the issue is. Okay, so. Drop targets, lamp board, They're texting me. Somebody must have already seen it. All right, did you find it? Huh? If you want to keep playing and don't want me to reveal the answer, stop the video now. I'll put on the time music. Doom 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 boom. All right. The tilt switch has one wire going to it, but this side doesn't have anything going to it. So one of the wires is missing from the tilt switch, and it's connected to the solenoid. Huh? So this is power for the flipper. It's running through the coil and connected to here. This gray and yellow wire here. On these, do they run to the, it must run to the flipper control board or whatever. But basically, this coil is just a big length of wire. So any power that's coming in here is on the other end of this coil, which is right there. And this is a switch wire. So they've got solenoid voltage directly connected to the switch matrix. Now, there might be more of them. I don't know. We better look at the other side, huh? So on this side, so the way these are supposed to be wired, the power comes in here. And by the way, this is real easy to screw up. Look how close that wire is. This is not like the guy's an idiot or anything. This is super simple to screw this up, right? So the power comes in here. If this is wired right, I think it is. Power comes in here. And then they have it daisy chained two ways. They have it running to the lug on the flipper. And then it comes off of that, and it runs to a switch here. That's the end of stroke switch. Whenever this goes all the way in, it opens up that switch to kill, to basically add in the second coil. Right? And then, so the other side of the switch connects to the center lug. So that's one coil there. And then there's a coil between here too, right? So the wire is wrapped around to there, and then it goes over to here. And then this is the wire going back to the cabinet. If you look on this side, the power on this side comes in on this one, unless they have it all backwards, which they may. We'll have to look into all that. And they've done the same thing. They have it jumpered off going to the switch, and then also to the lug, right? And then the other side of the switch is going to the middle, and then that last wire goes back. But look, there's no extra wire there. There's an extra wire here. So let's look in the schematics and see, with that wire getting 38 volts, what would that touch? And then we'll look at the other switches. Okay, so now we can kind of see what's going on. So this is the connector where that wire comes in. It's a white and brown wire, and it plugs in right there, J10 pin 9. Okay, so it comes in and it goes to a resistor pack, and then through another resistor and touches a capacitor, and then they call it switch row A right there. Okay, which comes into U30 at pin 6. And then 4, 5, and 6, you know, do a gate or whatever. And then come down to this PIA that I was talking about, PIA 6821. So what's going on? 35 volts is coming in the board right there, where it doesn't want that. It wants 5 volts. Right? So it's like getting the shocker, people. All right, so it's going through there. It's hitting this resistor, this capacitor, and then it's coming back and it's hitting this chip, and then it's coming back and it's hitting this chip. So what we got to figure out is how far back did it burn? How far back did it burn? So let's look at the board. So it came in here. Remember, I didn't plug this one in. This one was still plugged in, and that's where the power was coming in. But it had already been like that, because when he put it in the machine, he plugged everything on, and then he saw stuff start screwing up, so he pulled it out. And he already had the problem on the power supply anyway, that somebody put the cap in backwards. I don't know how that could have happened. So power comes in here, 35 volts, and comes over, and the first thing it does is it hits this resistor pack. Well, if you look really close, that resistor pack is charged. See the last pin there? Right there. That's all burnt looking. So there is this resistor pack is a whole bunch of resistors connecting from each one of those pins to ground over here, or 5, or whatever they've got it tied to, right? So there is a resistor that it's touching basically from there to ground or whatever. So it's tying it into that. So that's obviously all burned up, right? And then the line continues on and it comes up here to this resistor pack, SR9. And it's really burnt up. So it looks like between 9 and 8. I mean, between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pin 7 and 8 is where the power runs through that resistor, and it's burnt it all up. See the black on the resistor pack? Okay. And so then it leaves there, and it comes over here and it touches this capacitor. And that capacitor is tying it to ground or something. It looks pretty good. And then it runs past it. Did I just lose my signal? Yeah, that's the wrong one. The line is under it on the back. You can see it. That's it there. It runs up here to pin 1, 2, 3, 4, pin 6. Okay. So it hits pin 6 over here on this chip, and then comes out pin 4 over to the PIA. So how far did the fire go? It screwed up that resistor pack, and screwed up that resistor pack for sure. So I'll start testing stuff, and we'll see what's burnt and what we need to replace. And hopefully it didn't screw up the PIA, just because that's a PIA to change, and it has 40 pins on it, so it just takes a little while to remove it. But we can do it. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so the first place that it hits is this last pin of this resistor. And wouldn't you know it, it was burnt up. So this is a resistor network. Like I said, it connects this one pin to each of the other ones. And it's a 560 ohm resistor network. So each one of those 9 pins should connect to the 10th pin, which is connected to 5 volts. Okay? Luckily, it's the one on the end that's screwed up. So instead of 560 ohms, it's 47,000 ohms. Burnt slap up. So, I looked, I don't have that exact resistor network. I just ordered some, but I'm feeling a little impatient. So if I measure between, these are connected to that first pin. If I measure between the first pin and that, I get 550 ohms, right? I don't know if I can get it where you can see it. Can I get it where it's in the picture? There, you deal with it, people. It'll be all right. Come on now. It doesn't have to be straight up in the air. We're working with what we got here, all right? What's wrong? What happened? What's the deal? I hit a button. Hold on a second. Let me reset it. Okay. Look. 550 ohms to each pin, right? So this is switch row 8. That's 7. That's 6. That's 5. That's 4. I think I'm off one. Right? But you see what's going on, right? You see it? You see it? You see it? Oh, and look, the one that's right next to the one that somebody's cut, it still works. It's at 558. But the one's been cut off. Oh, and it has 553, which is close enough for government work. Huh, I wonder how that happened. It's been cut off, but it's the proper reading. Oh, somebody soldered a resistor to the back of the board. That's why it works just fine now. All right, so we'll leave it like that until I get my resistor networks in, okay? And then we'll swap it out for a nice pretty one. But it looks pretty right now. I mean, that's pretty, people. Come on. So it runs from there, and then it runs up to this next one, right? And it looks all charred and burned up. So let me test it and see what's going on with that. And yet another resistor pack, and it's on the end. Okay, so these work different. These are not resistor buses. These are resistor networks. So the way these work are like these left two pins are connected to each other. And then the next two pins are connected to each other. And then the next two pins are connected to each other. And then there were two more pins on the end that some absolute ruffian has cut off with a pair of wire snips. So I measured it, and it was instead of 1,000 ohms between the two pins like the other three sets were, it was 1,500 ohms. But I had those new, so I put a new one in, right? Okay. So when I get those other ones in, I'll have those new next time. All right. So it's now correct. And you kind of like that it's 1,500 because think about what does that mean? It was starting to screw up, but it hadn't completely screwed up. Remember, we're trying to keep the power from coming from here all the way up to our chip and frying it. Okay? So let me show you a couple more little troubleshooting techniques that work for me at least. We've got it on resistance. Okay? Now, these are capacitors. You can't really measure the resistance of a capacitor, but you know what you can measure? You can measure if a capacitor's burnt slap the hell up. Right? So when I do measure resistance across that capacitor, I get something like 1,818 ohms resistance, which isn't really important, doesn't really mean anything. But since I have a whole bunch of them here, when I check another one, I get something similar. Right? So we're just interested in this one here that the power touches. It ran by, we'll say. Did it screw it up? Well, it measures 1,808 ohms resistance, and one of these other ones here near it measures 1,813 ohms resistance. Like I said, you can't measure the resistance of a capacitor and prove anything, but you can prove that they're all kind of similar. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like that number doesn't mean anything, but since they're all similar, they're all about the same, then the capacitors themselves are probably all similar. We don't believe these ones over here are bad, but we think this one might be. But when I measure resistance across it, which is about all I can do right here, easily, I don't have a capacitance meter, it seems fine. Because it measures the same as the others, even though it's a resistance test, which is kind of useless on a capacitor. Okay? And it looks good. Now, if I were to measure that and I got some really weird number where it's much different than the other ones, that would tell me that that capacitor's had some trauma in its life. That's what I would go with, okay? So I'd swap it out. But it seems fine. It's not shorted, and it measures similar to the other ones, so we're going to leave it, okay? And so the next thing that it does is it goes back to this U30 chip, which is a 4011. I don't know much about those, but let me show you another little trick you can do. We're basically trying to figure out if the power burnt that up, because that was the next thing that it ran through after it ran through this resistor. But this resistor burned up, and then this resistor burned up, but not as bad. So it's almost like it's not getting through as far, which is good. That's what we would want, right? So let's see if we can test anything about this with a meter to tell if there's been anything crazy happen to it or if it's likely to be bad. All right, folks, so here's what we do. U30. It's this one, okay? I'm going to look in the schematics. And what saves us is we've got 8 different circuits that are exactly alike. So, again, you don't even need to know what that chip does. All you need to know is that there's 8 things that do the same thing. If you know that little trick, you can fix all kinds of stuff. Because it keeps you from having to have a whole bunch of stuff memorized, okay? Now you can look up the information sheet and figure out what a 4011 is. I see them from time to time on stuff. But here's what's going on, okay? The line that we're looking at that ran through the resistor that's burned up comes in on pin 6 of U30. Pin 5 of U30 comes in, and they are gated together, and the output is pin 4, okay? But here's what we're going to look at. The outputs of that chip are pin 4, pin 3, pin 10, and pin 11, okay? So I'm going to take my meter, and I'm going to put it on diode test, because we're going to mess with the gates a little bit. And then if you look here, you've got either the ground trace or the power trace coming in here. Let's guess that's the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on pin 7. Okay, so I'm going to put my red lead on the ground. And then what did I say the outputs were? 4, 3, 10, and 11. So pin 4. I'm getting 0.571, which is, your voltage drop that you get on a gate, So it's between 0.4 and 0.7. It's 0.5. There's some kind of gate relationship there. Pin 4, pin 3, 8, 9, pin 10, and pin 11. All measure similarly. Okay? So what does that tell us? Is the chip good? Well, we don't know for sure, but it kind of seems that way. So now we'll do the same with the inputs. Okay, so all of the ones that come off that one side are pin 6, which is the one we're messing with. 6, 2, 9, and 13. Okay, pin 6, this is the one that got the juice. 0.7. Did I say 2? There's 2. 9. And 13. So all the inputs from those lines have a similar reading going into the chip, and then the gate out of the chip, or the output of the chip, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm obviously not a educated man in this area, but they all measure similar. So what are we to think? That chip's probably fine. If the power zapped it, they'd be all screwed up. It wouldn't say 0.714, 0.714, 0.714, 0.714. It would say 0.714, 0.714, 0.714, 0.352. It'd be completely different because it's freaking fried, right? So we don't know that for sure, but use your head. Now that one chip does 4 of them, and then U39 does the other 4 of them. Okay. So you can measure between them too, but you get what I'm saying. I think I've proven my point. I don't think that chip's screwed up. So then it goes back to the PIA, the peripheral interface adapter. Okay, and it hits that on pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can't definitely test it like this, but I mean, if we're just trying to figure it out while we got it on the bench. 2, you see I'm doing the same thing? 2, can you see that? I've got it covered, don't I? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. All of the inputs, it's not really inputs. All of those, that bus, when it hits the PIA, they're all the same. So it doesn't mean that the PIA is definitely good, but it kind of tells me that nothing has been zapped there, because there's still a relationship between the 5 volts. It's not necessarily through the chip, though, you know what I mean? Because the 5 volts is connected all over the ground, whatever that is connected all over the board and then to there. You can try to reverse it, too, and do it the other way. But it's the same thing. You're just basically checking what the relationship between the board is and those chips, not necessarily what the internal relationship on the through the PIA is. But I don't know, folks. Everything looks good to me from where I'm sitting. Now that PIA could still be bad, and that U30 could still be bad, but I don't think it is. Seems fine to me. So we fixed this by adding a resistor. We fixed this by replacing it. We think the capacitor's fine. We think U30's fine. I'm hoping the PIA is fine. I don't know for sure that would keep the board from booting, though. You know, these 3 bad transistors may have, though. So I don't know. So we'll clean it up. I'm going to go disconnect that wire from the flipper and put it on the switch where it's supposed to be. And then we'll put the board in. And we'll see if we can fry it again. Maybe. Okay, I've mounted it back in. I didn't put all the screws in yet in case we have to take it back out. I think it's a pain. I left both of the switch connectors off. Okay, so let's see if she will boot and do anything. See if we get anything different. Look for smoke. Especially look to see if our switch transistors burn up again, since they already have twice. Oh, we got a diagnostic LED blinking. And our blinking signal LED is blinking. I don't know if that's normal or not. U26 ROM failure. We're getting there though. We didn't have that before. U26 ROM failure. Okay, interesting. So U26 is that ROM there with the label on it next to the one with no label on it. So I removed it and cleaned the pins and put it back. Now, a lot of times when something like whenever it says ROM failure or whatever, it's not because the actual ROM is bad. It's because it can't talk to the ROM. Like it doesn't know if the ROM has the right information on it if it can't access it. So it could be that it's not getting the power that it needs, or it could be that the socket is dirty or the pins are dirty on the chip. So I removed the chip, cleaned the legs, and I just put it back in. So let's see if that changes anything or if we need to get out the ROM burner and try to read it. Oh. That sounds better. Okay, so see our action on the LEDs? The one on the right is solid, the blinking one, and the diagnostic one is lit. And it's saying factory setting. Now, why would it say that? It's because the batteries. So it needs batteries, but they put a remote battery holder on it. But there's no batteries in it. So it will do that. So there's a couple ways you can... Oh, I don't have the switches plugged in yet. So I can't... I don't like that. Oh, the coin door switches are plugged in. All right. Wham. There we go. Cool. All right. So I think that was the main thing. Let's see if he wants to talk to us. I think that was the main thing, but I think it's probably still got a lot of little minor issues. We didn't even do any of the stuff that he wanted us to do under the Playfield. He sees us. But he's alive. He came back. He cooperated, poor thing. He'd had his solenoid voltage ran through his switch matrix, and some joker put the cap in backwards on the power supply that runs the lamps. Are those leads? Did he lead me? I don't think he did. I think those are normals. Can you tell? Well, I don't know. They're coming on awful quick. I don't think they're leads. Those aren't. Boy, it looks good though. Let's turn off the lights. Check it out in the dark. Now we. Whoo! There's that Williams music. What a beautiful game. All right, folks, so we can't play it yet because, honestly, it looked pretty scary under the playfield. So we're going to have to work on it again. But I think we've made good progress so far. We got her to boot. She's up and running at least, doing its attract mode, yelling at us. Oh, you know what? I need to plug in the switches just to make sure it's not going to do it again as soon as I plug in the switches, don't I? Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to turn it off and then plug the switches in and turn it back on. We've got to do it eventually, people. You can't be afraid. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid of it, okay? It's going to be all right. Okay, so I got the 2 switch connectors on. Now we really might get some smoke now. Because what if he's got more than one thing messed up? It's awful funny that we had multiple transistors burn up. Are we about to create another video for me? Here we go. You see any smoke? I don't see any smoke. All right, now I'm going to do the quick. So if you're stuck in factory settings, if you turn it off and back on real quick, it'll boot it into a gameplay because the 5 volts doesn't drain immediately. Okay, so back where we were. Let me turn off the lights for Catalin. We have a viewer, Catalin. She likes whenever we say, and just then Joe said, let's turn off the lights. All right, so I think we're cool. We're not burning up switch matrix stuff yet. Maybe on the next video. The displays look good. A little creepy. The displays look good. The lamps look good. The voice sounds good. We plugged in the switches without it burning everything up so far. So I think this is a good place to stop. Make sure you leave your comments down below. Give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. Look, it's got real bulbs in it. You can tell. One of them's burnt out. It's got real bulbs in it. You can tell. Make sure to check out my brother Donnie. If you don't know about that, we have another channel here on YouTube. It's my brother. So if you like watching us work on these old pinball machines and arcade games, you'd probably like watching us work on old buildings. We've got a couple old buildings in a small town near here that we're working on to help revitalize their downtown area. And we'd like to thank everybody that's been using our Amazon links. It's been doing really well lately, so thank you, folks. If you don't know about that, down below there is a link to Amazon. If you're going to buy anything on Amazon, if you use our link to go there, it gives us a tip for anything you buy. So we appreciate that. And check out our website, lionsarcade.com. We have a parts page on lionsarcade.com with a bunch of links to stuff we use in our videos and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed the little troubleshooting we did. And boy, I'm excited. We got it fixed pretty... we figured it out. That was a good one there. It's cool finding a little problem and then figuring out the mystery, isn't it? That's what makes them so fun. So we'll see you on the next video. We'll do another one of this one where we troubleshoot all those things he has marked under the playfield.